All right, so conservatives always like to complain about cancel culture and how their voices are being silenced by the establishment and by big tech and the media. And for the most part, I think, although there are fair criticisms of all the things that I just talked about, I think for the most part, conservatives push this narrative because they want to perpetuate a victim complex for themselves. And they never really actually talk about some of the real examples of cancel culture. Edward Snowden and Julian Assange come to mind. And we have another example here that is a perfect encapsulation of the conservative mindset surrounding this issue. Because an AP reporter, yes, the Associated Press that was just bombed by Israel, they just had their offices completely obliterated by Israel in Gaza, has come out and fired one of their newest journalists for pro-Palestinian stances that she has taken in the past. So let's go ahead and read some of the details. I have a thread here from the Stanford College Republicans who basically started this entire thing, and we're going to read through some of the claims that they have against her. And let's just first read some of the details here. So Emily Wilder, who began working at the AP as a news associate on May 3rd, was fired Wednesday, 3 days after tweeting that despite promoting objectivity in reporting, many in the corporate media make political choices in how they choose to cover Israel and Palestine. So basically doing a commentary on the media's bias against pro-Palestinian narratives. So here's what she said. Quote, objectivity feels fickle when the basic terms we use to report news implicitly stake a claim. Using, quote, Israel, but never Palestine, or war, but not siege and occupation are political choices. Yet media make those exact same choices all the time without being flagged as bias. So, first of all, this is a 100% accurate take. This is 100% correct. Because this is how the media always reports on these crises. I've seen it. I've covered it in my previous videos, how they'll cover this as, oh, well, it's a clash between Palestine and Israel. Oh, well, it's a war between It's not a war. It's not a clash. It's a one-sided affair. You have the occupier and the people being occupied. You have the oppressor and the people being oppressed. You have a nuclear-armed superpower backed by the most powerful military in the world. And then you have people who have essentially nothing in Gaza. Their infrastructure is obliterated. They barely have any clean water or food, etc., etc. So this is 100% an accurate take on the framing that the media in the United States typically uses to cover Israel and Palestine. So continuing on here, what does the AP have to say about it? Well, the AP told Wilder that she had violated the company's social media policy and fired her, but according to an interview with the San Francisco Chronicle, Wilder was not told about which of her social media posts had led to the decision. Although the AP's policy, as written, only applies to social media posts during a staff member's employment, and a spokesperson for the outlet told reporters Wilder was dismissed for posts made during her time at AP, Wilder said she believed she was fired because of old social media posts she wrote when she was a college student at Stanford University, from which she graduated in 2020. Wilder, who is Jewish, by the way, was an active member of Jewish Voice for Peace and Students for Justice in Palestine and posted about Palestinian rights while in high school. So here are some of the things that are in question or that were put forward by the Stanford College Republicans as well as other conservatives online to try to start this canceling campaign against her. So let's just read one of these. So in 1 week, I will be attending the Jewish Voice for Peace's Return to Birthright protest outside of Taglit Birthright Israel's fundraising gala with far-right, pro-Trump, naked mole rat-looking billionaire Sheldon Adelson. Why do I hashtag return the birthright? Because millions of Palestinian refugees and their descendants cannot visit or return to their parents' or grandparents' homes, while Israel, funded by bigots like Adelson, spends, and then she continues on here. But, okay, I'm not going to comment on this because I don't like making fun of people's opinions generally, but if you go look up Sheldon Adelson, then you might think that this characterization of what he looks like is pretty accurate. But moving on from that, Sheldon Adelson is a total piece of shit. He deserves every criticism that he gets. He was one of Trump's, or literally Trump's largest campaign donor. He's as corrupt as it gets, and he has profited off of some of the most despicable things that you could imagine in his history. So they say, recently we discovered that the Associated Press has hired former Stanford anti-Israel agitator Emily Wilder, who referred to the late Sheldon Adelson as a naked mole rat, as one of their journalists. So that's one of the posts that she brought up. I don't really think there's anything controversial in anything that she just said. They continue on talking about her involvement in some of these protests and some of the things that she said on Facebook years ago again. And this is another thing. I mean, what the fuck? They say, when our club hosted Ben Shapiro in November 2019, current Associated Press employee Wilder penned in an op-ed for the Stanford Daily, referring to Ben Shapiro as a little turd. Ben Shapiro is a little turd. So, again, she's kind of based, and she's kind of correct in all of these things that she's saying. So, this is the campaign that was launched to get her fired from AP. These are very weak claims. I mean, what are you even claiming here? That she had in the past shown support for Palestine? Again, she's Jewish. So what are you claiming? That she's anti-Semitic for having criticisms of the government of Israel? This is a perfect example of how people refuse to not conflate these two things. There's a complete difference between criticizing the government of Israel and criticizing all Jewish people. There's a complete difference between criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu and criticizing Israel and Israel's people as a whole. They're two completely different things, but again, they're conflating these two things as conservatives always do. And it's just ironic that these are the same people who are always screaming and up in arms about, oh, we're being canceled, we're being silenced, and then this is what you get someone fired over? And on top of that, it's absolutely pathetic that the AP would bow down to these people, that you would bow down to some freak right-wing conservative groups like this. I mean, it's pathetic, especially given the situation that we have right now. Again, AP and Al Jazeera had their entire office building leveled to the ground in Gaza. They had Israel obliterated their office building, and then later came out and put out a statement that said, oh, well, they claimed Hamas was in the building, but they said, oh, well, all of the things that Hamas had in the building, well, they pretty much just had the opportunity to get out in the same way that the journalists had the opportunity to get out before the airstrike was. So they destroyed these offices basically for nothing. And they admitted it was for nothing. And instead of AP ramping up their accurate criticisms or trying to do actual journalism and critique Israel for their actions and their war crimes that they have been committing over the last 11 days, instead of doing that, they turn around and they bow down to the right-wing mob. That's what they're doing in this situation. So they say, a note to say that news associate Emily Wilder is no longer with the AP. We'll fill the position as soon as possible. So they fired, as the Gravel Institute points out, the AP fired a journalist for expressing support for Palestine in college. This is what cancel culture really is: powerful right-wing groups pressuring any dissenting views out of the media. This is exactly what cancel culture is. You want to talk about cancel culture? It's this. This is actually what it is. And conservatives are almost never the victims of cancel culture, okay? Unless you're some alt-right fringe Nazi, okay? It's actually left-wing people that are overwhelmingly impacted by cancel culture, and yet conservatives are completely silent about this. So, I mean, that's the situation we have here. Let's listen directly from the source of what she had to say about this. Wilder said the firing was in response to negative publicity. Quote, this is clearly a case of selective enforcement of the social media policy, Wilder told the Chronicle. Quote, I don't buy their convenient cover story at all because they never told me what specifically I did wrong. And in the termination letter, they said the harassment campaign prompted the review and that the review, they found supposed violations of their policy. That's an admission that this was prompted by the campaign against me, and it's really unfortunate that the AP is abdicating their responsibility to not only me, but to all journalists just because a group of college students wanted to engage in a witch hunt. So I think she's 100% correct here. I think this is literally a witch hunt because this is just a group of college students who put together some flimsy reasons for why she should be fired, and they're completely bullshit reasons. Standing up for Palestine is not a reason to be fired. And yet in our ecosystem, in our media ecosystem, it still is somehow. For some fringe group of right-wing freaks online have the power to get somebody fired for statements like we just saw. I mean, it was nothing. It was nothing controversial. And yet that's where we are right now. So can you imagine if an AP writer in this moment right now who got fired for supporting Zionist groups in college? Could you imagine? That would never happen. Of course that would never happen. And if it did happen, they'd probably be labeled as anti-Semitic. So this is the situation that we have right now in our media ecosystem. It's totally slanted towards one side. Again, they literally just blew up the Associated Press's office buildings without justification. Okay, they didn't provide any evidence that Hamas was inside the building. And then even if they were, they said they didn't even get anything out of the strike. So, I mean, this is a situation that we have right now. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely pathetic. Solidarity with her, and I hope that either the AP retracts this and rehires her because that's the right thing to do in this circumstance, or that some outlet that actually has any sort of any journalistic integrity will hire her as well, because she's doing good work, and nobody deserves to lose their job for bullshit reasons like this.